The Psychology of Consistency, written and published by Echo Tales. Introduction. Consistency is not exciting. It does not create instant results, yet it decides almost everything. Most people search for motivation. They wait to feel ready. They hope for the perfect moment. This book begins with a simple truth. The people who win are not more motivated. They are more consistent. The psychology of consistency is about how small actions, repeated over time, quietly shape your life. It is not about hype. It is not about shortcuts. It is about how the human mind works when it repeats the same behavior again and again. This book exists for one reason: to help you understand why consistency is so powerful and why it is so difficult. You will learn how your brain responds to repetition. You will see why motivation fades, but habits remain. You will understand how identity forms through repeated choices, not big choices, small ones. Consistency is not a personality trait. It is not luck. It is not discipline alone. It is a psychological process. Once you understand that process, everything changes. Throughout this book, you will not be asked to push harder. You will not be told to force willpower. Instead, you will learn how consistency becomes natural, almost automatic. This book is designed to be heard. Each idea flows into the next. Each chapter builds on the last. You do not need to rush. Let the ideas settle. You may notice something as you listen. The concepts are simple, but the impact is deep. Consistency works quietly. It does not demand attention. It does not announce progress. It builds strength in silence. Many people quit because they do not see results fast enough. They assume nothing is happening. This book will show you why that belief is false. You will learn how progress hides before it appears, how repetition rewires behavior, and how patience becomes a competitive advantage. This is not a book about doing more. It is a book about doing less, more often. By the end, you will understand how to stay consistent without burnout, how to recover when you fall off track, and how to think long-term in a world that rewards impatience. Most importantly, you will begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who starts strong and stops early, but as someone who continues. Consistency is not about intensity. It is about identity, and identity is shaped by what you repeat. As you continue listening, remember this: you do not need to change everything. You only need to stay. This book will show you how. Chapter 1. Why consistency shapes everything. Most lives are not changed by single moments. They are shaped by repeated ones. Think about how anything meaningful grows. A skill, a career, a relationship, a healthy body. None of these appear all at once. They form through actions that happen again and again. Consistency is the quiet force behind progress. It works in the background. It does not demand attention. Yet it determines outcomes more than talent, intelligence, or luck. Many people misunderstand this. They believe success comes from big moves. They look for breakthroughs. They wait for inspiration. What they miss is the power of what happens daily. Consider a simple example. Two people start a new habit. One works hard for a week and then stops. The other does a small action every day for a year. The second person changes their life, not because the action was impressive, but because it was repeated. Consistency shapes results because the human mind responds to patterns. What you repeat becomes familiar. What becomes familiar feels safe. What feels safe becomes automatic. This is how behavior turns into identity. When you act in the same way repeatedly, your brain starts to adjust. Neural pathways strengthen. Decisions require less effort. Resistance fades. Over time, the action stops feeling like work. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. Intensity burns energy. Consistency builds momentum. Many people fail not because they lack ability, They fail because they cannot stay with one behavior long enough. They change plans too quickly. They quit when results are slow. They mistake silence for failure. Progress often hides before it appears. Imagine planting a seed. You water the soil each day. For weeks, nothing happens. No visible change. Most people stop here. They assume the effort was wasted. But beneath the surface, roots are forming. Growth is happening where you cannot see it. When the plant finally breaks through the soil, it looks sudden. In reality, it was earned through consistency. This is how progress works in real life. Consistency shapes confidence as well. Confidence is not something you wait for. It is something you build through repeated proof. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, trust increases. Every time you follow through, self-respect grows. This is not emotional, it is neurological. The brain records evidence. When actions align with intention, the mind learns that you are reliable. That belief becomes powerful. In contrast, inconsistency weakens trust, not just with others, with yourself. Many people feel stuck because they break promises daily. They say they will start tomorrow. They say they will be disciplined next week. Each delay sends a signal. The signal says, I cannot be trusted. Consistency reverses this pattern. It does not require dramatic change. It requires repetition. Look at athletes who reach elite levels. They do not train perfectly every day. They train consistently. They show up even when motivation is low. They follow routines that remove decision-making. The same applies to work and creativity. Writers who finish books do not write only when inspired. They write regularly, often in small sessions, often without excitement. Their advantage is not talent, it is consistency. This principle applies to mental health as well. Emotional stability is shaped by repeated coping behaviors, reflection, movement, rest, boundaries. Small actions done often regulate the nervous system. Big efforts, done rarely, do not. Consistency also simplifies life. When behavior becomes routine, mental load decreases. You no longer debate what to do, you simply do it. This frees attention for higher thinking. Creativity improves. Stress lowers. The mind likes predictability. Consistency provides it. At this point, many people think consistency requires strict discipline. That belief stops them from starting. In truth, consistency is more psychological than physical. It is not about forcing action. It is about reducing friction. When actions are simple, clear, and repeatable, consistency follows naturally. This book will return to that idea often. For now, remember this. Consistency is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters. Repeatedly. One action done daily will always outperform many actions done occasionally. This chapter sets the foundation. Consistency shapes habits. Habits shape identity. Identity shapes outcomes. Nothing escapes this pattern. As you continue, you will learn how consistency forms, why it breaks, and how to make it sustainable. For now, hold this idea with you. Your future is being shaped right now, not by what you plan, but by what you repeat. Consistency is already working in your life. The only question is this: is it working for you or against you? Chapter 2. The brain's love for patterns. The human brain is not designed to think deeply all the time. It is designed to survive efficiently. From the moment you wake up, your brain looks for patterns. It searches for what is familiar. It prefers what it has seen before. This is not laziness. It is biology. Patterns reduce effort. They save energy. They allow the brain to operate on automatic mode. This is why consistency is so powerful. It works with the brain, not against it. Every repeated action sends a signal. The signal says, this matters. When the signal repeats often enough, the brain listens. At first, every new behavior feels uncomfortable. It requires attention. It requires decision-making. This is because the brain has no pattern to rely on. Think about learning to drive. In the beginning, everything feels overwhelming. Mirrors, pedals, traffic, signs. With repetition, something changes. Actions blend together. Decisions become automatic. The brain builds a pattern. Eventually you drive without thinking about driving. The task did not become easier. Your brain became more efficient. This is the core of consistency. The brain rewards predictability. When an action repeats, neural pathways strengthen, signals travel faster, less energy is required. This is why habits feel effortless over time. Many people believe they lack discipline. What they actually lack is repetition. Discipline feels hard when the brain has no pattern to support it. Once a pattern exists, behavior flows. The brain also dislikes uncertainty. Uncertainty creates stress. It forces constant evaluation. Consistency removes uncertainty. When you act at the same time, in the same way, your brain relaxes. It knows what comes next. This creates a sense of control. Control increases calm. This explains why routines are comforting. Morning routines, work routines, evening routines. They anchor the mind. In stressful periods, people naturally seek structure. They clean, they organize, they repeat familiar actions. The brain is trying to restore predictability. Consistency is not restrictive. It is stabilizing. Now consider the opposite. Inconsistency. When actions change constantly, the brain stays alert. It cannot automate behavior. Every choice requires effort. This drains energy quickly. Decision fatigue sets in. Motivation drops. People interpret this as weakness. It is not weakness. It is overload. The brain was never meant to decide everything from scratch. This is why people struggle to maintain change. They rely on conscious effort. They fight biology instead of using it. Consistency works because it allows the brain to shift tasks into the background. Once that happens, behavior no longer feels heavy. This also explains why stopping a habit feels strange. Even bad habits feel comfortable once they become patterns. The brain values familiarity more than quality. It prefers known discomfort over unknown improvement. This is why people stay in routines that do not serve them. The pattern feels safe. Breaking a pattern requires energy. Creating a new one requires patience. The brain does not change through intention. It changes through repetition. This is an important distinction. Many people set goals. Goals are ideas. Patterns are behaviors. The brain responds to behavior. When you repeat an action, the brain begins to predict it. Prediction is the brain's primary function. When predictions are accurate, the brain feels efficient. When predictions fail, stress increases. Consistency improves prediction accuracy. This is why small repeated actions are so effective. They are easy to predict. They are easy to repeat. Big actions create noise. Small actions create patterns. Imagine brushing your teeth. You do not debate it each night. You do not need motivation. The pattern exists. Consistency turned effort into default behavior. The same process applies to thinking. Thought patterns form through repetition. Self-talk, beliefs, reactions. If you repeatedly think a certain way, the brain treats it as truth, not because it is true, but because it is familiar. This is why consistency shapes mindset. Repeated doubt strengthens doubt. Repeated effort strengthens confidence. Repeated avoidance strengthens fear. The brain does not judge content. It strengthens patterns. Understanding this gives you leverage. You are not fighting yourself. You are training your brain. Training requires repetition, not pressure. This chapter highlights a simple reality. Your brain loves patterns. It protects them. It reinforces them. Consistency is how you choose which patterns survive. As you move forward, remember this. The brain is always learning. It is always adapting. Every repeated action teaches it something. The question is not whether you are shaping your brain. You already are. The real question is this: what patterns are you reinforcing every day? Chapter 3. Motivation is unreliable. Motivation feels powerful. It feels like energy. It feels like the beginning of change. That is why people trust it. When motivation is high, action feels easy. Plans feel exciting. The future feels clear. Then motivation fades, and everything stops. This pattern repeats for most people. They start strong. They stop quietly. They blame themselves. The truth is simpler. Motivation was never meant to last. Motivation is emotional. It rises with excitement. It falls with fatigue, stress, and boredom. Relying on motivation is like relying on good weather. Some days are clear, many are not. Consistency cannot depend on something so unstable. The brain does not treat motivation as a reliable signal. It treats it as noise. What the brain responds to is structure, predictability, repetition. This is why people struggle after the first burst of energy fades. They expect motivation to carry them forward. When it disappears, they assume something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. This is how the mind works. Motivation initiates action. Consistency sustains it. Think about how people begin fitness routines. They feel inspired. They train intensely. They promise daily effort. After a short time, life interrupts. Energy drops. Schedules change. Without structure, the routine collapses. This is not a failure of willpower. It is a failure of design. Motivation is strongest at the start, because novelty activates the brain. New ideas create dopamine. Dopamine creates urgency. Once the idea is no longer new, dopamine fades. The brain shifts attention elsewhere. If behavior depends on dopamine, it ends here. Consistency depends on something different. It depends on commitment, without emotion. This is uncomfortable for many people. They want to feel driven. They want to feel inspired. But consistent people do not wait for feelings. They build systems. A system removes choice. It turns action into a default. When action is scheduled, motivation becomes optional. Consider someone who writes every morning at the same time. They do not ask if they feel like writing. They sit down and begin. Some days the work is poor. Some days it flows. The key point is this: the action happens either way. This is how consistency survives low motivation. Motivation also lies about timing. It says start big, start fast, start now. Consistency prefers a slower pace. Big starts create high expectations. High expectations create pressure. Pressure increases resistance. Small starts reduce friction. A short walk is easier than a workout. 1 page is easier than a chapter. 5 minutes is easier than an hour. Consistency grows through what feels manageable. Motivation wants transformation. Consistency wants repetition. There is another problem with motivation. It creates emotional dependency. People wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident. They wait to feel inspired. Action is delayed until emotion arrives. This teaches the brain that action requires permission. Over time, this weakens initiative. Consistency teaches the opposite lesson. Action comes first. Emotion follows. Confidence is built after action, not before it. Energy increases after movement, not before it. This reverses the common belief. When people say they are not motivated, they are often exhausted, or overwhelmed, or undecided. Consistency addresses all three. It reduces decision-making. It lowers cognitive load. It creates rhythm. Rhythm supports endurance. Think of motivation as a spark. Useful at the beginning, useless for the long run. Consistency is the engine. Engines do not need excitement. They need fuel and routine maintenance. When motivation is high, Use it to build structure, set times, set locations, simplify steps. Do not use motivation to push harder. Use it to make future action easier. This is how motivation becomes valuable. Eventually something shifts. You stop asking how you feel. You start asking what you do. This is a powerful change. Consistency does not eliminate motivation. It replaces dependence on it. When action continues without emotion, progress becomes inevitable. This chapter removes a false expectation. You do not need to feel motivated to be consistent. You need a system that works when motivation disappears. As you continue, remember this: motivation is a visitor. Consistency is a resident. If you build for the resident, the visitor no longer matters. Chapter 4. Identity comes before discipline. Most people believe discipline creates change. They think action comes first. They think identity follows later. In reality, the order is reversed. Identity shapes behavior long before discipline appears. Every action you take sends a message. The message answers a simple question: who am I? When actions repeat, the answer becomes clearer. The brain begins to form a story. That story becomes identity. Identity is not who you want to be. It is who you believe you already are. This belief quietly guides behavior. A person who believes they are inconsistent will act that way, not because they want to fail, because the behavior matches the identity. A person who believes they are disciplined does not debate action. They act in alignment with who they believe themselves to be. This is why discipline alone often fails. Discipline asks you to fight your current identity. Identity asks you to act naturally. Think about how people speak. They say things like, "I am not a morning person. I am bad with money. I always quit." These statements feel harmless. They are not. They become instructions. The brain seeks consistency between belief and behavior. When identity is set, behavior follows. This is not conscious. It happens automatically. Consider two people facing the same task. One says, "I am the type of person who finishes what I start." The other says, "I struggle to stay consistent." Both feel tired. Both feel resistance. One continues. The other stops. The difference is not energy. It is identity, alignment. Discipline feels heavy when it contradicts identity. It feels light when it confirms it. This explains why lasting change begins internally. Most people try to change behavior first. They push themselves. They force routines. Without identity change, the effort feels unnatural. Eventually, resistance wins. Identity-based consistency works differently. Instead of asking, "What should I do today?" you ask, "Who am I becoming?" Every small action becomes a vote for the type of person you are building. One action does not decide identity. Repetition does. This is good news. It means identity is flexible. It can be shaped, but it must be shaped slowly. Big promises do not change identity. Small repeated actions do. When you show up for 5 minutes, you prove something. When you return the next day, you prove more. Over time, the brain updates its story. It says, "This is who you are now." Once identity shifts, discipline becomes unnecessary. Action feels normal. Skipping feels uncomfortable. This is the goal. Look at people who maintain long-term habits. They do not describe their behavior as effort. They describe it as who they are. They say things like, "I do not miss workouts. I am someone who prepares ahead. I show up." These statements are not motivational. They are descriptive. Identity also protects consistency during difficulty. When motivation is low, identity carries action forward. You do not ask if you feel like it. You act because it fits your self-image. This reduces friction. The brain prefers internal consistency. It wants beliefs and actions to match. When they do, behavior stabilizes. This is why labeling matters. Instead of saying, "I am trying to be consistent," say, "I am someone who practices consistency." The language shifts perception. Perception shifts behavior. This is not positive thinking. It is psychological alignment. There is an important balance here. Identity must be earned. If identity statements are too large, the brain rejects them. It senses contradiction. That is why small actions matter so much. They provide evidence. Evidence changes belief. Belief changes behavior. This cycle is how consistency becomes permanent. Discipline tries to control behavior from the outside. Identity shapes it from the inside. One requires effort forever. The other becomes automatic. As you move forward, remember this. Do not ask how disciplined you need to be. Ask who you need to become. Then prove it to yourself. Once, then again, then again. Identity is not decided in a moment. It is built in repetition. Consistency does not start with discipline. It starts with belief. And belief is shaped by what you repeat every day. Chapter 5. Small actions create big change. Big change rarely begins with big action. It usually begins with something small. This idea feels uncomfortable to many people. Small actions seem insignificant. They do not feel powerful. They do not create instant results. Yet small actions are the most reliable drivers of lasting change. The brain does not respond well to extremes. Extreme effort creates resistance. Extreme plans create pressure. Small actions feel safe. They feel manageable. And because they feel manageable, they get repeated. Repetition is where change begins. Think about how erosion works. A single drop of water seems harmless, but repeated drops reshape stone over time. The power is not in the drop. The power is in the repetition. The same principle applies to behavior. Most people overestimate what they can do in one day. They underestimate what they can do in 1 year. This gap leads to frustration. People start with intensity. They aim for transformation. They try to overhaul everything at once. The brain resists this. It senses threat. It prepares to protect the current pattern. This protection shows up as procrastination, as distraction, as fatigue. Small actions bypass this defense. When an action is small, the brain does not argue. It does not negotiate. It allows the behavior to happen. Once the behavior happens, something important occurs. You become someone who showed up. That identity shift matters more than the action itself. Consider someone who wants to read more. They decide to read 1 page a day. 1 page feels almost pointless, but the action gets done. 1 page becomes 2. 2 becomes 10. Eventually, reading becomes part of daily life. The habit did not grow because of ambition. It grew because of consistency. Small actions also create momentum. Momentum is psychological. It comes from movement, not results. When you complete a small task, the brain releases a sense of progress. Progress feels good. That feeling encourages repetition. Repetition strengthens the pattern. This is why starting small works. Large goals often fail because they depend on future motivation. Small actions succeed because they work with present reality. There is another advantage to small actions. They lower the cost of failure. If you miss a small action, recovery is easy. There is no guilt spiral, no feeling of starting over. You simply continue. This protects consistency. Many people quit because they miss once and feel defeated. They believe perfection is required. Small actions teach flexibility. They allow imperfection without collapse. Change that survives imperfection lasts longer. Small actions also improve awareness. When actions are simple, you notice patterns. You see when resistance appears. You see when energy drops. This feedback helps adjustment. Big actions hide feedback. They overwhelm attention. Small actions reveal what actually works. This is why progress accelerates over time. At first, results are invisible, but something is happening beneath the surface. Neural pathways strengthen, confidence grows quietly, identity begins to shift, then results appear. They often feel sudden. They are not. They are the outcome of accumulation. This is the compounding effect of consistency. One small action does not matter. Hundreds of small actions do. The mistake people make is judging small actions too quickly. They look for immediate payoff. Consistency does not reward impatience. It rewards persistence. Small actions also protect energy. They fit into busy days. They survive stress. They adapt to changing circumstances. This makes them sustainable. Sustainability is more important than speed. Fast change that cannot be maintained is not progress. Slow change that continues is. This chapter is not about lowering standards. It is about choosing leverage. Small actions give you leverage over time. They turn effort into habit, habit into identity, identity into outcome. As you continue listening, remember this: you do not need a breakthrough. You need a baseline you can repeat. On good days, on bad days. Consistency is not built by heroic effort. It is built by ordinary action repeated. Small actions create big change, not because they are impressive, but because they last. Chapter 6. The Myth of Overnight Success. Overnight success is a story we tell after the work is done. It sounds exciting. It sounds fast. It is almost never true. When people see a sudden result, they assume it appeared quickly. They do not see what came before. They do not see the quiet effort. They do not see the repetition. Consistency hides its work. Think about someone who becomes successful in their field. From the outside it looks sudden. From the inside it feels slow. Years of practice collapse into one visible moment. This misunderstanding creates false expectations. People believe progress should be obvious. When it is not, they assume they are failing. This belief destroys consistency. Real growth is delayed. The brain needs time to adapt. Skills need time to sharpen. Trust needs time to build. None of this happens instantly. The myth of overnight success teaches impatience. Impatience leads to quitting. Quitting resets progress. This cycle repeats for many people. They try something new. They commit briefly. They stop when results lag. Each attempt feels like a fresh start. In reality, it is a restart. Consistency requires patience with invisibility. Consider learning a new skill. At first, effort feels high and results feel low. This phase is discouraging. Most people stop here. Those who continue pass through a quiet zone. Progress becomes smoother. Mistakes reduce. Confidence grows. Then results appear. The appearance feels sudden. The process was not. This delay exists for a reason. It protects meaningful outcomes from casual effort. If success were immediate, it would not last. The brain also plays a role here. Early effort produces little reward. This tests commitment. The brain asks, is this worth continuing? Consistency answers that question through action. Each repetition says yes. Over time, the brain begins to expect progress. Motivation stabilizes. Effort feels lighter. But this shift happens only after persistence. The myth of overnight success ignores this phase. It focuses on the finish line, not the path. This creates comparison. People compare their beginning to someone else's middle. They feel behind. They rush. Rushing leads to shortcuts. Shortcuts break consistency. Real progress does not need to be fast. It needs to be steady. Look at careers that last decades. They are built on reliability, not bursts of attention. Look at physical health. It responds to habits, not events. One workout does nothing. 1 year of movement changes everything. The same is true for mental growth. One insight does not transform behavior. Repeated reflection does. Overnight success stories remove the most important detail: time. Time is not an obstacle. It is the medium through which consistency works. Without time, repetition has no effect. This chapter is a reminder: if results feel slow, you are likely on the right path. If progress feels invisible, it is probably forming. Consistency is not meant to be dramatic. It is meant to be dependable. You do not need to accelerate. You need to continue. Success that lasts grows quietly. It reveals itself only after it is stable. As you move forward, release the myth. There is no overnight success. There is only effort that stayed long enough to be seen. Chapter 7. Consistency beats perfection. Perfection feels responsible. It feels disciplined. It feels like high standards. In reality, perfection often blocks progress. Perfection demands ideal conditions: the right mood, the right timing, the right plan. Consistency accepts reality as it is. This difference matters. People who chase perfection delay action. They wait until everything feels aligned. They polish plans instead of executing them. While they wait, time passes. Consistency does not wait. It asks a simpler question: what can I do today? This question lowers resistance. Perfection sets rules that are difficult to follow. Consistency sets rhythms that are easy to repeat. This is why consistency wins. Perfection also creates fear. Fear of mistakes. Fear of looking unprepared. Fear of falling short. Fear leads to avoidance. Consistency allows mistakes. It expects them. It survives them. Mistakes are part of repetition. Think about how children learn to walk. They fall constantly. They do not stop because they fall. They keep moving. If perfection were required, no one would learn. The same principle applies to adult behavior. When people miss a day or break a streak, they feel defeated. They believe the effort is ruined. This belief is false. Consistency is not about never failing. It is about returning. Returning builds resilience. Perfection teaches all or nothing thinking. Consistency teaches continuation. All or nothing thinking is fragile. One mistake breaks everything. Continuation is flexible. It bends. It adapts. This flexibility protects long-term progress. Perfection also consumes energy. It requires constant evaluation, constant correction. Consistency simplifies decision-making. When behavior is repeatable, you do not overthink it. You show up and begin. This conserves mental energy. Energy saved can be used for growth. There is another hidden cost of perfection. It focuses attention on outcomes instead of process. Outcomes are delayed. Processes are immediate. When attention stays on outcomes, motivation fluctuates. When attention stays on process, consistency stabilizes. Consistency rewards participation. Perfection rewards results. Results cannot be controlled daily. Participation can. This shift is important. People who stay consistent define success differently. Success becomes showing up, not achieving a flawless result. This definition is sustainable. Consider someone learning a new language. If they aim to speak perfectly, they hesitate. They avoid practice. If they aim to practice daily, progress accelerates. Errors become teachers, not threats. Consistency turns mistakes into data. Perfection turns mistakes into judgment. Judgment slows learning. Consistency speeds it up. This does not mean standards disappear. They evolve. Consistency improves quality over time. Perfection demands quality before time. Time is required for improvement. This is why professionals rely on repetition. Writers draft daily. Athletes train daily. Musicians practice scales daily. They are not perfect each time. They are present each time. Presence compounds. Another benefit of consistency is trust. Others trust consistent people. They know what to expect. This applies internally as well. When you act consistently, you trust yourself. That trust fuels further action. Perfection offers no such reward. It sets unreachable conditions. Consistency builds credibility. As you move forward, release the need to be perfect. Aim to be present. If you miss a day, return the next. If effort feels low, do less, but continue. Consistency does not ask for excellence today. It asks for participation. Over time, participation creates excellence. Perfection tries to skip this process. Consistency respects it. This chapter carries a simple message. Do not aim to be flawless. Aim to be consistent. Consistency beats perfection every time. Chapter 8. How habits lock in consistency. Consistency begins as a choice. Habits turn that choice into default behavior. This is an important shift. When behavior relies on choice, it is fragile. Choice depends on mood. It depends on energy. It depends on attention. Habits remove that dependency. A habit is not an action. It is a pattern stored in the brain. Once a habit forms, the brain no longer debates. It recognizes a cue and responds automatically. This is why habits protect consistency. Think about how you lock your door. You do not analyze the decision. Your hand moves on its own. The action is familiar. The pattern is set. Habits work through a simple loop. A cue appears. The action follows. A result reinforces it. The brain learns quickly when this loop repeats. At first, effort is required. Attention is needed. But with repetition, effort decreases. This is the brain saving energy. Many people try to stay consistent through force. They rely on willpower. Willpower fades. Habits remain. This is why habit formation is the foundation of long-term change. Consistency without habits is exhausting. Consistency with habits is sustainable. The key is how habits are built. Most people focus on outcomes. They say they want results. Habits focus on process. The brain cares about what happens now, not what might happen later. When actions are immediate and repeatable, habits form faster. This is why simple habits work best. Complex routines break easily. They require too many steps. They increase friction. Simple actions slide into daily life. For example, placing a book next to your bed. This creates a visual cue. Reading becomes the natural response. The environment does half the work. Habits also rely on consistency of timing and location. When an action happens at the same time or place, the brain predicts it. Prediction strengthens the habit. Random behavior does not create strong patterns. This is why routines matter. Another important factor is reward. The brain needs feedback, not praise. A sense of completion, checking a box, finishing a short task, seeing progress. These signals tell the brain to repeat the behavior. The reward does not need to be big. It needs to be immediate. Delayed rewards weaken habit formation. This is why habits that feel good right away last longer. Many people try to change too much at once. They stack habits too quickly. The brain resists overload. One habit at a time is enough. Once a habit is stable, it supports the next. This layering effect builds consistency naturally. Habits also protect behavior during stress. When life becomes chaotic, habits remain. They provide structure. They anchor the day. This is why consistent people appear calm. They are not making constant decisions. The brain trusts the routine. Breaking a habit requires effort. Maintaining one requires less. This asymmetry is powerful. It means the hardest part of consistency is the beginning. Once habits form, consistency is maintained automatically. Habits also shape identity. When you repeat a behavior daily, the brain updates its self-image. You become someone who does that thing. This reinforces the habit. The loop closes. Identity supports habit. Habit supports consistency. Consistency supports identity. This cycle is stable. To build habits that last, start small. Attach them to existing routines. Make the action obvious. Make it easy to complete. Do not rely on memory. Design reminders. Do not rely on motivation. Design cues. Habits are not built through intensity. They are built through repetition. This chapter highlights a truth. Consistency is fragile when it depends on effort. It is strong when it depends on habit. If you want consistency to stay, stop forcing behavior. Start designing habits. Once habits lock in consistency, progress becomes inevitable. Chapter 9. The role of environment. Most people believe behavior is driven by willpower. They think action comes from inner strength. In reality, behavior is strongly shaped by environment. Environment is everything around you. What you see, what you hear, what is within reach. The brain responds to what is immediate. It reacts faster than it reflects. This is why environment matters so much. When something is visible, it feels important. When something is hidden, it is forgotten. Consistency follows visibility. Consider a simple example. If healthy food is placed in front of you, you eat it more often. If it is out of sight, you forget it exists. This has nothing to do with discipline. It has everything to do with cues. The environment provides cues constantly. Each cue invites a behavior. Phones invite scrolling. Chairs invite sitting. Open spaces invite movement. The brain does not argue with cues. It responds. This is why changing environment is often easier than changing behavior. Many people try to fight their surroundings. They resist temptation through effort. Effort fails under fatigue. Environment does not get tired. A well-designed environment supports consistency quietly. For example, if your workspace is clean and organized, focus improves. There are fewer distractions. The brain stays on task. If your tools are ready, action begins faster. There is less friction. Friction is the enemy of consistency. Even small barriers matter. If an action requires too many steps, it gets delayed. If it requires only one step, it happens. This is why environment design is powerful. You can make good behavior easier. You can make bad behavior harder. This does not require extreme changes. Small adjustments are enough. Placing reminders where you see them, removing distractions from reach, preparing the night before. These actions shape behavior without effort. Environment also influences emotion. Bright spaces increase alertness. Clutter increases stress. Silence improves focus. The brain absorbs these signals automatically. When the environment feels calm, consistency feels easier. This is especially important during low motivation periods. When energy drops, environment carries behavior forward. People often underestimate this. They say they lack discipline. They do not realize their environment is working against them. A chaotic space demands constant attention. Attention drains energy. A supportive environment restores energy. Environment also shapes identity. When your surroundings reflect your goals, the brain aligns behavior. You begin to act in ways that match what you see. This creates reinforcement. Think about athletes. Their environment supports training. Equipment is accessible. Schedules are clear. They do not rely on motivation each day. Their environment reminds them who they are. The same principle applies to everyday life. You do not need more willpower. You need fewer obstacles. Consistency is easier when the path is clear. This chapter carries a simple message. If you want to change behavior, change surroundings. Design your environment to support repetition. When the environment works with you, consistency stops feeling hard. It starts feeling natural, and natural behavior is the kind that lasts. Chapter 10. Consistency. During low energy days, not every day feels strong. Not every day feels focused, and not every day feels motivated. Low energy days are normal. They are part of being human. The problem is not low energy. The problem is how people respond to it. Most people treat low energy as a stop signal. They wait to feel better. They postpone action. Consistency fades here. Consistent people respond differently. They adjust the standard. They do not abandon the action. This difference is critical. Energy is unpredictable. Some days are sharp and productive. Other days feel heavy and slow. If consistency depends on high energy, it will not last. Consistency must survive tired days. The key is understanding one simple idea. Consistency does not require maximum effort. It requires minimum commitment. On low energy days, the goal is not progress. The goal is continuity. This mindset changes everything. Instead of asking, "Can I do my best today?" you ask, "What is the smallest version of this action I can complete?" Small actions preserve the habit. They protect identity. For example, if you normally exercise for 30 minutes, 5 minutes is enough on a low-energy day. If you normally write a page, a few sentences are enough. The action matters more than the output. This keeps the pattern alive. Many people fear lowering standards. They think it will lead to laziness. In reality, it leads to resilience. Rigid systems break under pressure. Flexible systems survive. Low-energy days are pressure tests. If your system only works on good days, it is fragile. Consistency that adapts is strong. The brain responds well to this approach. It does not associate the habit with pain. It associates it with completion. Completion feels good. It reinforces repetition. Skipping creates guilt. Guilt drains energy even further. Small completion restores momentum. There is also an emotional benefit. On low-energy days, doing something small creates relief. It breaks the feeling of being stuck. Movement changes mood. Action reduces mental weight. You do not need to feel energized to act. Often action creates energy. This is especially true for mental tasks. Starting is the hardest part. Once started, resistance often fades. Consistent people understand this. They do not negotiate with exhaustion. They simplify. They protect the habit, not the performance. Another important point is self-talk. On low-energy days, harsh self-talk increases fatigue. It adds pressure. Consistent people speak differently to themselves. They say, "Today is lighter," not "lost." They say, "Showing up still counts." This language matters. The brain listens. If you label a day as a failure, behavior shuts down. If you label it as maintenance, behavior continues. Maintenance days are part of long-term success. No system runs at full capacity every day. Think about machines. They require rest. They require reduced output at times. Humans are no different. Consistency does not mean forcing productivity. It means protecting the routine. Another strategy is planning for low energy in advance. Assume low energy days will happen. Design for them. Have a reduced version of each habit ready. No decisions needed. This removes friction when energy is low. Consistency improves when expectations are realistic. Many people quit because they expect to feel good every day. That expectation is false. Energy fluctuates. Commitment does not have to. Low energy days do not undo progress. They test structure. When you continue through them, confidence grows. You prove something important to yourself. You prove that consistency is not conditional. This builds trust. Trust strengthens identity. Over time, low-energy days lose their power. They become quieter, less dramatic. You stop seeing them as obstacles. You see them as part of the process. This chapter offers a simple rule. Never miss twice. Never stop completely. Do less if needed. Do not do nothing. Consistency during low-energy days is not impressive. It is not visible, but it is decisive. It is where long-term progress is protected. Consistency is not built on your best days. It is built on the days you feel like stopping. Those days matter most. And when you continue anyway, even gently, you win. Chapter 11. Breaking the Cycle of Inconsistency. Inconsistency rarely appears suddenly. It forms through patterns. People start with good intentions. They act for a while, then they stop. Stopping creates guilt. Guilt creates avoidance. Avoidance deepens inconsistency. This cycle repeats quietly. Most people do not fail because they quit once. They fail because they stay stuck in the cycle. Understanding this cycle is the first step to breaking it. Inconsistency often begins with unrealistic expectations. People demand too much from themselves. When they cannot maintain it, they disengage. The brain interprets this as failure. Failure feels heavy. Heavy feelings lead to distance. Distance breaks routines. The cycle continues. Breaking inconsistency does not require more effort. It requires a different response to disruption. The key moment is not when you stop. It is when you decide whether to return. Consistent people do not avoid disruption. They recover quickly. Recovery is a skill. Many people believe they must restart perfectly. They wait for a clean slate. This delays action. Consistency does not need a restart. It needs a continuation. Returning to action without drama is powerful. Even a small return weakens the cycle. One action breaks inertia. Another common cause of inconsistency is emotional overload, stress, pressure, mental fatigue. When the nervous system is overloaded, routines collapse. This is not a character flaw. It is a capacity issue. In these moments, simplifying behavior is essential. Reduce expectations, shorten actions, protect the habit. This prevents collapse. Inconsistency also grows when identity is damaged. People label themselves as unreliable. They repeat the label. The brain accepts it. Behavior follows belief. Breaking this requires evidence, not promises. Proof. Each return is proof. Each small action rebuilds trust. Trust restores momentum. Another trap is overanalyzing the past. People replay mistakes. They focus on lost time. They measure how far they fell. This keeps attention backward. Consistency lives in the present. The only action that matters is the next one. Letting go of judgment is necessary. Judgment does not improve behavior. It freezes it. Compassion does not weaken consistency. It supports it. When people treat themselves harshly, they avoid action. When they allow imperfection, they return faster. Breaking inconsistency also requires structure. Vague goals encourage avoidance. Clear routines invite action. Knowing exactly what to do removes hesitation. Even during low motivation, clarity helps. This is why predefined minimum actions matter. They act as bridges back to consistency. The cycle breaks when action becomes normal again. Not heroic, normal. Another important factor is time perspective. Inconsistent cycles feel endless when viewed short-term. Zooming out changes perception. One missed week does not define a year. One pause does not erase progress. Consistency is not measured daily. It is measured across time. This reduces pressure. When pressure drops, return becomes easier. Breaking the cycle is not about never stopping. It is about shortening the gap between stopping and continuing. Each time the gap shrinks, consistency strengthens. Eventually, the cycle loses power. You stop identifying as inconsistent. You start identifying as resilient. Resilient people recover. They do not panic. They do not quit. They adjust and continue. This chapter delivers a clear message. Inconsistency is not the enemy. Staying stuck is. You do not need a perfect record. You need a reliable return. Every return rewrites the pattern, and once the pattern changes, consistency becomes the norm. Chapter 12. Long-term consistency and patience. Consistency shows its true value over time, not days, not weeks, but months and years. This is where patience becomes essential. Many people understand consistency in theory. Few understand how time changes it. At the beginning, consistency feels fragile. Every action requires attention. Every result feels far away. This phase tests patience. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active trust in the process. Long-term consistency depends on this trust. Without patience, people rush. They measure progress too often. They adjust too quickly. Frequent adjustment interrupts patterns. Patterns need time to stabilize. Think about learning a new routine. At first it feels awkward. Then it feels normal. Eventually it feels natural. This progression cannot be rushed. The brain needs repetition across time to accept behavior as permanent. Short-term thinking interferes with this. When people expect fast results, they create pressure. Pressure increases monitoring. Monitoring increases doubt. Doubt weakens consistency. Patience quiets this noise. It allows behavior to repeat without constant evaluation. Long-term consistency also requires realistic expectations. Progress is not linear. It moves in waves. Some periods feel productive. Others feel flat. Flat periods are dangerous for impatient minds. They assume nothing is happening. In reality, stability is forming. Stability is what allows growth to last. This is why patience matters more as time passes. Early consistency builds habits. Long-term consistency builds character. Character forms slowly. It is shaped by repeated decisions made without applause. This type of growth is invisible but powerful. Patience also protects against burnout. Burnout often comes from forcing progress, from pushing too hard for too long. Consistency that lasts respects limits. It allows rest. It allows recovery. Patience teaches pacing. Pacing keeps effort sustainable. People who last do not sprint endlessly. They move at a speed they can maintain. This is not a lack of ambition. It is strategic endurance. Long-term consistency also reshapes perspective. You stop asking, is this working? You start asking, is this aligned? Alignment matters more than speed. Aligned actions compound naturally. Misaligned actions exhaust quickly. Patience allows alignment to reveal itself. It gives space for reflection. Another challenge in long-term consistency is boredom. Repetition can feel dull. Excitement fades. This is normal. The brain seeks novelty. Consistency requires familiarity. Patience bridges this gap. It helps you understand that boredom is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that a habit is settling. Settled habits are powerful. They operate without emotion. This is the stage where consistency becomes effortless. But reaching this stage takes time. Patience also reframes success. Instead of measuring days, you measure seasons. Instead of tracking streaks, you track direction. Direction matters more than speed. If your actions point the right way, time does the rest. This mindset reduces anxiety. Anxiety shortens focus. Patience lengthens it. Long-term consistency is not dramatic. It is quiet. It does not feel urgent. It feels steady. This steadiness builds resilience. When challenges appear, consistent people do not panic. They trust the system they built. Trust comes from time invested. You cannot shortcut this trust. Patience also helps with self-forgiveness. Over long periods, mistakes will happen. Breaks will occur. Patience prevents overreaction. Instead of quitting, you continue. This is how consistency survives years. This chapter emphasizes a critical truth. Consistency reveals its full power only with time. Patience is the companion that allows it to work. If you feel behind, slow down. If progress feels invisible, continue. Time is not working against you. It is working for you. As long as your actions repeat, growth is happening. Long-term consistency is not about intensity. It is about trust. Trust in small actions, trust in repetition, trust in time. With patience, consistency becomes unstoppable. Chapter 13. Consistency as a lifestyle. Consistency begins as a practice. Over time, it becomes a way of living. This shift is subtle. It does not happen in a single moment. It happens through repetition. At first, consistency feels like something you do. Later, it feels like something you are. This is the difference between effort and lifestyle. A lifestyle does not require constant decisions. It follows patterns. It moves with rhythm. When consistency becomes a lifestyle, behavior stops feeling forced. You no longer ask if you should act. You assume that you will. This assumption changes everything. Consistency as a lifestyle is not rigid. It is adaptable. Rigid systems break under pressure. Lifestyle systems adjust and continue. This flexibility allows consistency to survive changing seasons of life. Work becomes busy. Energy shifts. Responsibilities increase. A lifestyle adapts without collapsing. This is why long-term consistency looks calm. It does not rely on intensity. It relies on integration. Consistency integrates into daily life. It fits into routines. It blends with identity. This reduces friction. Another key feature of a consistency-based lifestyle is simplicity. When consistency is part of life, unnecessary effort disappears. You stop over-planning. You stop over-committing. You choose actions that are repeatable. Repeatable actions are sustainable. Sustainable actions create stability. Stability creates freedom. This may sound counterintuitive, but structure creates space. When habits are set, attention is freed. You can focus on creativity, on relationships, on growth. Consistency supports these areas quietly. Consistency as a lifestyle also changes how you respond to setbacks. Setbacks no longer feel like failures. They feel like pauses. Pauses are expected. When consistency is internalized, you return without resistance. There is no emotional drama. You simply continue. This emotional neutrality is powerful. It prevents burnout. It prevents guilt cycles. It keeps momentum intact. So another shift occurs in how you measure success. Success is no longer tied to short-term outcomes. It is tied to adherence. Did you show up? Did you maintain the rhythm? This metric is within your control. Control increases confidence. Confidence reinforces consistency. Consistency as a lifestyle also influences relationships. People learn what to expect from you. You become reliable. Reliability builds trust. Trust opens opportunities. This applies to work. It applies to personal commitments. Consistency creates a reputation, internally and externally. This reputation strengthens identity. You no longer need to motivate yourself. Your environment expects consistency. Expectations guide behavior. This feedback loop stabilizes action. Another benefit is decision reduction. When consistency is habitual, choices decrease. You do not debate workouts. You do not debate preparation. You do not debate follow-through. Less debate means less stress. Less stress means more energy. Energy supports consistency. The loop continues. Consistency as a lifestyle also allows for growth. Without overwhelm, you can add new habits gradually. They stack naturally. Each new behavior fits into an existing rhythm. This makes change manageable. Change that feels manageable lasts. A lifestyle approach also protects health. Mental health improves with predictable routines. Physical health improves with steady movement. Emotional health improves with reliability. Consistency supports balance. It prevents extremes. You do not push too hard. You do not drift too far. This balance is key. This chapter highlights an important idea. Consistency is not a temporary strategy. It is not something you turn on and off. it is a framework for living. When consistency becomes your default, progress becomes natural. You stop chasing change. Change follows you. Consistency as a lifestyle is quiet. It does not announce itself, but it shapes everything. And once it is in place, it carries you forward, day after day, without struggle. Chapter 14. Becoming someone who never stops. There is a difference between never failing and never stopping. This chapter is about the second. People who succeed long-term do not avoid setbacks. They avoid quitting. They keep going. Becoming someone who never stops does not mean endless effort. It means endless return. Return after fatigue. Return after distraction. Return after mistakes. This is a powerful identity shift. Most people see stopping as failure. They attach emotion to it. They judge themselves harshly. That judgment creates distance. Distance turns into delay. Delay becomes quitting. People who never stop think differently. They see stopping as temporary. They see returning as normal. This mindset changes behavior. Instead of asking, "Why did I fail?" they ask, "What is the next step?" The next step is always available. This is not optimism. It is practicality. Life will interrupt consistency. Energy will drop. Focus will drift. These events are not signs to quit. They are signals to adjust. Adjustment keeps movement alive. Becoming someone who never stops requires redefining success. Success is not an unbroken streak. Success is a pattern of continuation. You may pause, you may slow down, but you do not abandon the path. This definition removes pressure. Pressure creates resistance. Resistance creates avoidance. Consistency thrives without pressure. Another important shift happens with time. People who never stop rushing. They stop forcing outcomes. They understand that time is an ally. When urgency fades, patience grows. When patience grows, effort becomes sustainable. Sustainable effort wins. This identity also changes how you relate to discomfort. Discomfort no longer feels threatening. It feels familiar. Familiar discomfort loses power. When effort becomes routine, fear quiets. You stop asking if you can handle it. You already know you can. This confidence is not loud. It is steady. Becoming someone who never stops also means releasing drama. Missed days do not become stories. They do not become excuses. They become data. You notice what caused the break. You make a small adjustment. You continue. This approach keeps emotion low and action high. Emotion is unpredictable. Action is controllable. Consistent people protect what they can control. Another key element is humility. People who never stop accept that progress is uneven. Some seasons move fast, others move slowly. They do not fight this reality. They work with it. Working with reality preserves energy. Energy preserved fuels longevity. Longevity is the real advantage. Most people can work hard briefly. Few can work steadily for years. Those who do become unstoppable, not because they push harder, but because they refuse to disappear. This identity also strengthens self-trust. Each return reinforces belief. The belief says, "I always come back." This belief becomes automatic. When challenges appear, panic does not. You know how the story ends. You continue. Becoming someone who never stops also simplifies life decisions. You do not debate whether to quit. That option is removed. You only decide how to continue. This clarity reduces mental noise. Noise drains focus. Focus sustains effort. The final shift is subtle but important. You stop seeing consistency as something you manage. You see it as something you embody. It becomes part of how you move through the world. You show up. You adjust. You continue. Not because it feels easy, but because it feels true. This chapter brings the journey together. Consistency is not about perfect days. It is about reliable returns. You do not need endless motivation. You do not need flawless discipline. You need one decision that repeats. No matter what happens, you come back. That is what makes progress inevitable. Becoming someone who never stops does not mean you never slow down. It means you never walk away from yourself. And once that identity is in place, nothing can take consistency from you. Conclusion. Consistency rarely looks impressive in the moment. It does not demand attention. It does not announce progress, yet it shapes everything. Throughout this book, one idea has remained steady. Lasting change comes from what you repeat, not what you plan, not what you promise, what you actually do. You have seen how the brain favors patterns, how motivation fades, how identity guides behavior, how small actions compound, how habits protect progress, how environment shapes choices, how patience gives consistency time to work. None of these ideas require intensity. They require commitment to repetition. Consistency is not about being strong every day. It is about being reliable over time. You do not need perfect routines. You need sustainable ones. You do not need endless discipline. You need systems that support you when discipline is low. You do not need dramatic transformation. You need steady alignment. This book was never about doing more. It was about staying longer, staying with a behavior past excitement, staying when progress is quiet, staying when energy is low. This is where real change happens. Consistency reshapes identity. Identity reshapes behavior. Behavior reshapes outcomes. This cycle works whether you notice it or not. Now you can choose how it works for you. As you move forward, remember this. Every small action counts. Every return matters. Every repetition teaches your brain something. There will be days when consistency feels easy. There will be days when it feels heavy. Both are part of the process. On easy days, build structure. On hard days, protect the habit. Do not measure yourself by perfection. Measure yourself by continuation. If you pause, return. If you drift, realign. If you struggle, simplify. Consistency is forgiving. It does not require a perfect record. It rewards persistence. Over time, something shifts. What once required effort becomes natural. What once felt forced becomes familiar. What once felt difficult becomes normal. This is how consistency becomes a lifestyle. You do not need to become someone new. You need to become someone who continues. That identity will carry you further than motivation ever could. As this book comes to an end, the work does not stop. It simply becomes quieter. Each day offers a chance to repeat what matters, to reinforce who you are becoming. Stay with the process. Stay with yourself. Consistency is already shaping your life. Now it is shaping it on purpose.